Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Let's Process Your Image. Now, the idea behind this is to, first of all, give you guys my take on your particular image, but also to help you if you're struggling with something in particular from an editing point of view, or like as I mentioned, if you just would like some different eyes on your image. Now, this is by no means a way of me saying this is the only way to process. I'm by no means a um, Lightroom professional or the whatever you want to call it. So this week, Sabrina sent through her image of a lion, which, if I'm not mistaken, was taken in the Serengeti a couple of months ago. So without hesitating any further, let's have a look at Sabrina's image. Right, so this is the image. This is the raw file, and just from a quick glance, what I normally like to do before I start processing my image is hit F just to see the image in full screen. Now, there's a lot to like about this image. So there's vast open plains of the Serengeti. You've got the beautiful clouds at the top here. And there's just the intent in the lion's face, which really sort of stands out. So let's get straight into processing this image. I'll hit D for develop. And usually what I like to start off with is my cropping. Now, I love the feel of this image, the animal in environment, but I think because it's landscape, a 16:9 crop would actually work quite well with this one. So let's go 16:9, and I don't want to lose too much of those clouds or the beautiful sky at the top. I'd rather lose a bit of the foreground. So let's bring it up to around about there. That already looks much better. There's also quite a handy tool, especially when you're working with horizons like this that you often get in East Africa, is if you go on the angle tool and you just click just from one side, drag it across to the other point, and it already looks straight to start off with, but just to make sure that your horizons are nice and straight. Okay, now we can start working on this particular image, and I'll start off with my basic panel and do overall adjustments. What's important to understand when you photographing, first of all, when you've got these bright skies over here and your darker subject, is to expose correctly, to still have enough detail in your subject, but not overexpose it that much that you start losing detail here. So if you look at the histogram, it looks pretty much spot on. There's nothing peaking on the blacks, and there's also, although this is a little bit to the right, it's not really peaking on the sides. So it means that there's still enough detail for us to work with over there. Right, so let's start off. I'll start off with the whites and the blacks first, just to make sure that they are correctly exposed. All right, so let's have a look. We'll drag and see what's happening with my my histogram top right. That means I'm starting to lose detail. There where you see the colors, losing detail in the sky there. So we'll bring it back slightly, maybe around about there. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing with the blacks. Have a look what's happening to my histogram again. See how it's starting to peak on the left hand side. So we don't want that. We just want to bring it back a little bit, probably to about maybe there. Okay, so that's a nice starting point. My whites and my blacks are now correctly exposed. What I want to do next is just lift the shadows in here a little bit. So this shadows, bring that up a touch. Okay, so already looking a whole lot better. I'm not going to worry about excuse me, the presence part too much for now. I'm going to go straight down to these lights and darks, and that will give nice contrast to the image. It's important to understand the difference between whites and blacks, and then also your lights and darks. So your whites and your blacks, the whites only affect the white parts of your frame, and then the blacks obviously just the black areas. Whereas the lights and the darks, that affects, from a light point of view, the lights will be any light color, light greens, light orange, light blues. It will work on that, and then the same thing with the dark. So we're gonna just bring these lights up just a little bit, and then again also the same thing with the darks, and that just brings a bit of contrast to the image. Excuse me. And then to go down, I'm going to do the sharpening now as well. And I hope by now, if you guys have been following the Behind the Frame series, you understand what the masking does. But just to recap it again quickly, if I just sharpen here now, it's going to sharpen the entire image, which we don't want. We only want the sharpening to happen mainly around the line and maybe a bit of the foreground as well. So with the masking, we're just going to drag now. Everything that goes black from here on is not being sharpened anymore. It's only the white areas that are being sharpened. So we want to have as little as possible of the background and the majority of it on the line. So I'd say around about there. Okay, now let's just sharpen this up a fraction. There we go. All right, so that for me looks pretty good from a overall adjustments point of view. Now what I want to do next now is localized adjustments. So just certain areas that I want to make it sort of stand out a little bit more. And firstly, what I'm going to do is, especially when you're working with skies, if your camera is dirty, there is a chance that there might be some dust spots. So if you hit Q and A together, you'll start getting sort of an image like this, that sort of black and white, and over here you'll see it'll give you option visual spots. If it's not there, if you don't see it, then just hit T and that'll pop up. And this will give you a good indication. You can have a look and see if there's any dust spots, and this looks pretty good. I don't see any dust spots there, so that's good to go. And then to get out of this, you could just hit Q again and it will disappear. So I'm happy there's no dust spots in my sky, so that means I can start processing. I want to work on this sky now to really make it sort of stand out and create a bit of mood. So I'm going to go into the gradient filter or gradiated filter and just pull this down. Remember, if you want to see what areas it's going to affect, hit O, and you can see those parts that are red. That's where the adjustments are going to take place. And let's just bring this down a little bit. Okay, so around about there. And then we just want to sort of bring more clarity into the skies and make them a little bit more dramatic. So drop these blacks slightly. And we're going to add a bit of clarity just to bring more detail in those clouds. And we can maybe just a slight dehaze, just a small bit, and then maybe bring some of these highlights down. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Again, you don't want to overdo it too much. If you start fiddling with exposures and things here, you can see it gets fake very quickly. So for me, from a sky point of view, that looks pretty good. Might just bring the shadows down a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, as I mentioned, secondly, what I wanted to do is just bring out some of the detail here in the line. And there are a few ways that you can do that. You can either use the brush, an adjustment brush, but in this case, I'm going to use the radial filter just to work on this foreground area. Okay, so something to that effect. Yeah. And remember now, if you start processing now, it's going to work around your circle. So we don't want that. We want to work inside. So we hit invert, and that's going to affect now this area within the circle. So we want to maybe just lift those shadows up slightly, and then also just bring some of those whites up a little bit as well. Again, very, very small adjustments, especially when you're working in color. If you overdo it in color, it can start looking fake very, very quickly. All right, so just from the naked eye, that looks pretty good for now. Okay, so if you want to have a look before and after, hit Y, and you can already see quite a big difference. You've got more detail in your line over here, and your skies are popping a lot more as well. One more thing that I maybe want to try and do is to try and just lift some of these shadows up here a little bit. So let's view this maybe 1-to-1, and with the adjustment brush, we're just going to brush here. Let's lift those shadows slightly, and it's just to bring a bit more detail in that line. Again, so like I mentioned, it's a lot of small adjustments, and which overall gives your image still a natural look, but it does make a big difference. Okay, so that for me is starting to look good. I don't think maybe a bit of vibrance, just a tad. Again, you don't want to overdo it too much. I would personally, that is about as far as I would go with this particular image. Again, it's important, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with on Safari, or even when processing the image, is they're trying to create that false sort of golden color. There's nothing that beats natural light. So if you don't have beautiful afternoon or early morning light on it, it's difficult to recreate that. So I think if I recall this correctly, this was sort of late morning, if I'm not mistaken, or early afternoon. I can't remember, but you can see, I mean, the light is not that golden color, but still the effects, just from a bit of processing, does make a huge difference. Let's have a quick look again, before and after. Massive difference. And if we hit F, we can see the image in full frame. You can really see what the difference that it's made. And I mean, that looks beautiful. I think that's a great image. So Sabrina, well done on that image. Beautiful image, beautifully captured. And if you guys would like to send your image through, my email is down at the bottom here. I'm hoping to get these episodes out at least once a week. It's going to be a little bit difficult come July, August, when we start getting really busy. But I'm going to try and get as many episodes out as possible. So guys, that's it for episode 1. If you have any questions, please shout. I hope this bit of processing helped you guys. And I look forward to catching up with you guys in the next episode. Until next time, cheers. Have a good one.